Reacher Season 4 already seems exciting, but it must avoid some of its predecessor's mistakes to ensure its success. So far, the Amazon Prime Video detective series has performed incredibly well and is all set to expand its lore with an upcoming Needly spin-off show and Reacher Season 4. Given how the people behind the franchise are primarily focusing on Needly's production, audiences will have to wait for quite some time before they can watch Reacher Season 4. Since Reacher has consistently performed well among critics and even been commercially successful with each new installment, it seems likely that Season 4 will continue the show's streak. Most story and casting details surrounding Season 4 remain unknown, but it just has to riff on the strengths of its predecessors to be able to deliver another compelling chapter in the story of Alan Ritchson's character. At the same time, though, Reacher Season 4 must also be careful not to repeat the same mistakes that have weighed down its first 3 seasons. 6. Featuring another forced love interest for Jack Reacher. Reacher Season 4 must break this recurring story beat. Like the original Lee Child Jack Reacher books, the Amazon Prime Video series has featured a new love interest for the main character in each season. Every season ends with Jack Reacher parting ways with his new romantic interest and embracing his love of the open road instead of settling for a long-term relationship. While it is appreciable that the show is staying loyal to its source material, it needs to pause this trope for at least one season. Instead of rinsing and repeating the same cycle of brief romantic relationships for the character, Season 4 can just focus on developing him more as a solo figure by not getting him involved in another fleeting romance. The trend of Reacher getting romantically involved with a new female character in each season is starting to get a little too redundant and needs a refresh to keep the narrative from feeling formulaic. Reacher's short-term relationships in each season complement his lone wolf persona in many ways. However, Season 4 can focus on developing Reacher more as a solo figure by not involving him in another fleeting romance, instead of repeating the same cycle of brief romantic relationships. 5. Stretching the suspension of disbelief too far with the action. It must have a semblance of realism. The 3rd season of Reacher showcases a spectacular scene where the main character nearly manages to flip an entire car on his own. Fortunately, moments later, the show makes the Alan Ritchson character seem less overpowered by showing how one slap from Paulie severely injures him. Even in the climactic showdown, Reacher endures a brutal beating from Paulie before he triumphs over the giant. Reacher Season 3 adeptly balances portraying its lead character as a formidable force while simultaneously reminding viewers of his humanity. Season 2, however, made the mistake of making Reacher seem a little too invincible. Reacher demonstrated superhuman strength in the season's final showdown, significantly lowering the stakes of the overall conflict. Reacher Season 4 should avoid treading the same path as Season 2 at all costs and use Season 3's action scenes as a blueprint. 4. Repeating the same dialogue again and again. Reacher Season 2 was weighed down by redundant dialogue. Many viewers grew tired of Jack Reacher and his former team members from the 110th Special Investigation Unit repeating the same lines again and again. The quote, "You don't mess with the special investigators," was originally a fun credo that emphasized their camaraderie and teamwork. However, it was repeated so often that it almost lost its impact by the end of the season. Something similar happened with another Jack Reacher line. "I ever tell you you're smart, Needly?" The quote initially showed how much Reacher respected Needly and appreciated her help. Hopefully, Season 4 will keep its dialogue fresh and crisp. 3. Focusing less on Reacher and more on the secondary protagonists. Reacher is better off as a solo figure. Reacher Season 2 took the risk of introducing more powerful main characters such as Needly, O'Donnell, and Dixon to intensify the action and broaden its lore. Unfortunately, all 3 new characters came off as copies of Jack Reacher. Instead of contrasting Jack Reacher's personality, like Roscoe and Finlay did, the new characters became overwhelmingly similar to him in almost every series because throughout Season 2, Reacher and his 3 allies mindlessly killed the bad guys without either of them questioning their actions. Due to their shared military police background, the 4 characters appeared overly powerful when facing adversaries. Reacher Season 3 avoided repeating the same mistake by showing how Reacher teams up with the DEA, but ends up fighting solo as an undercover agent throughout the story. Hopefully, Season 4 will also do the same. 2. Making the villains seem far less formidable than Reacher. Only Season 3's villains seemed powerful enough. The majority of Reacher villains in the series have fallen short of expectations. Kleiner, Langston, and Am, the villains from Seasons 1 and 2, seemed a little too one-dimensional and significantly less menacing compared to Reacher. The villains were utterly defeated in one-on-one showdowns against the Alan Ritchson character. Season 3 finally flipped the equation by featuring Paulie as one of its main villains. This change paved the way for the series to feature its best action sequence, where Reacher nearly died while attempting to take Paulie down. Even Brian T's Quinn was a compelling villain in Season 3. Although he was nowhere as huge as Paulie in stature, he was brilliantly portrayed as an erratic, merciless killer who crossed all moral boundaries to ensure no one got in his way. Reacher Season 4 may not be able to introduce someone as big as Paulie as one of its villains. However, it can still ensure that its main antagonist seems threatening enough to pose a genuine challenge to Jack Reacher. 1. Using revenge as the primary driver for Reacher's story. Jack Reacher's motives have been the same since Season 1. Since Season 1, Jack Reacher's crime-solving endeavors have primarily been driven by his hunger for revenge. He stayed in Margrave in Season 1 after learning about his brother's murder. Similarly, in Season 2, he joined forces with Needley and his former 110th Special Investigation Unit team members because Langston killed his military allies. Season 3, too, adopted a similar narrative device, where Jack Reacher only agreed to work with the DEA because it allowed him to exact revenge on Quinn for killing Dominique Cole. The revenge trope has been overused in Reacher at this point. Therefore, Reacher Season 4 needs to introduce a new narrative motivation that goes beyond personal vendettas for Jack Reacher. Given how some tropes have worked wonders for the series, Reacher Season 4 cannot be expected to suddenly shed everything that has proven successful for the series so far. However, it still aims to introduce fresh elements to guarantee that the show continues to progress with each installment.